Rain hammered the compound roof like it was trying to punch its way inside. Floodlights scattered fractured beams across the tarmac. Her fingers curled around the cane, not for balance, not anymore. Not since they bolted that goddamn prototype. To the stump beneath her knee. No one noticed her approach the checkpoint. The guard, drenched and shivering, barely glanced at her ID. "Ma'am, you lost?" he asked. Her grip tightened. The thermal scan mounted over his shoulder had already clocked the ambient heat signature where her left calf should have been, which meant it had already pinged the cold hum of titanium beneath. He just hadn't seen it. Yet. She said nothing. Just waited. The scanner beeped. Red dot, then yellow, then white hot, and the guard's smirk vanished. Her name was Ava Kincaid, 33. Slender frame wrapped in waterproof charcoal layers, hood low. Every movement calculated with silent efficiency. She didn't fit the compound's usual profile, not tall enough, not loud enough, not careless enough to be one of the brash, testosterone-fueled recruits who usually trained here. The kind of place that churned out private response teams for oil, magnates, disaster czars, and the occasional shadow-deep government client. But Ava had clearance. And an assignment. She'd been here before. Back when the leg was flesh. Rain slicked the concrete walkways as she crossed to the main facility. Inside, the air was dry, metallic with disinfectant. A training group jogged by, drenched in sweat, and bravado, none of them breaking stride as she stepped aside. One of them glanced back, eyes catching the cane. Then his gaze dropped to the flat, unsmudged tread of her left boot. "Should have stayed home, Grandma," he muttered. She let the insult go. A few more days and that one would be begging her to calibrate his scope. In the day briefing room, the screens displayed regional escalation charts, flood markers, evacuation routes. Ava stood at the edge, unnoticed, until Commander Braith turned. His face froze. "You weren't supposed to be here until next week." She unzipped her jacket, revealing the lanyard, black tag, gold letters, Beta 7, Strategic Lethal Oversight. Braith exhaled. "We haven't even vetted the new squad yet. That's why I'm here early." A slow nod. "The leg holding up?" She tapped the cane once against the tile. The reply was solid. "Better." "Than flesh." Braith hesitated, then gestured toward the northern range feed. "Got something weird on the motion trackers. Could be nothing, but it's moving fast. Thermals?" Scrambled. Ava took a step closer. "Prep the recon drone. And tell Santiago I want his rookies geared for intercept in 20. He gave her a look. 100 questions behind those eyes. But he only said, "Copy that." Down in the armory, Ava ran her fingers along the line of rifles. She ignored the newest models. Her hand settled on a matte black frame with a scratched serial number. SRS, A2 Covert. Her father's favorite. She sat at the workbench, cleaned the chamber, calibrated the scope by field. 2 rookies hovered nearby, whispering. "Is she actually going out there with that thing? She looks like she needs help getting down the stairs." Ava chambered around. The sound cracked like thunder. "I need 5 volunteers," she said, eyes never lifting. "Whoever can assemble their loadout in under 3 minutes and still hit a 3-centimeter grouping at 600 yards. The whispers stopped. Then motion, scrambling. The recon drone streamed back jagged images of tree lines and rising mist. Movement. Something too fast, too fluid, not quite human, not quite machine. "Target approaching from quadrant 4, the drone tech muttered. Braith frowned. "That's outside our live fire zone." Ava didn't reply. She was already moving, out past the concrete and floodlights, into the soaked dark woods, mud sucking at boots, wind hissing through pines. Her 5 selected rookies flanked her, watching, waiting. She knelt. And with a practiced flick, detached. The cane, the synthetic leg hissed, unfolded, transformed. A silent mechanism extended beneath the knee. A Tripod. She mounted the rifle to it. The rookies blinked. She looked through the scope. A shape moved. Low to the ground, metallic, 4-limbed. She exhaled. Squeezed the trigger. The woods lit up. Back. At base, Braith replayed the thermal footage. Watched the red-hot tracer bloom from Ava's position. Watched the explosion. Watched the rest of the pack scatter. He turned to Santiago. What the hell did she just kill? No idea, but it wasn't alone. Out in the woods, Ava adjusted the scope again. Movement, East Ridge, one rookie whispered. She smiled, just a little. Good eye. Now let's see if it brought friends. Drop a, if you've ever been underestimated. Tap like if you'd trust. Her to watch your six in the dark. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The East Ridge loomed ahead like a wall of shadows, each pine silhouette a potential threat. Ava Kincaid crouched behind a moss-drenched boulder, her modular sniper leg fully deployed and locked into place. The 5 rookies fanned out behind. Her, weapons raised. Breaths visible in the damp night air. Not a single one spoke. Heat signatures flickered on the infrared goggles, lingering embers of the drone's thermal flare from moments ago. Distant coyote packs still too low to pose a risk. But Ava's earpiece crackled. Echo team sighted 2 more contacts moving east-northeast, thermal signature identical to the first target. The drone tech reported. Her finger hovered near the trigger. How far? She asked. 800 meters, came the reply. Terrain undulates, would need triangulation for a clean shot. She exhaled, the vapor drifting upward. 800 meters was out of her comfort zone with a standard bipod. But she had advantages her mission profile didn't list: experience, instinct, and a reflex honed by years of cold cocking rent-seeking mercs. Plus, thermal repellent nano-coating on her barrel reduced distortion. Prep the XM long shot round, she said, voice low but steady. The rookie beside her swallowed hard and passed the specialized ammunition. Metallic cylinders gleamed under the starlight. Ava worked swiftly. Load, chamber, adjust the reticle for wind drift and humidity gradient. All in a practiced flow. She glanced at the rookies, each one watching, eyes widening as her every move radiated confidence. Then the distant echo of movement. A soft rustle that betrayed something more mechanical than animal. She lined up the crosshairs on the nearest silhouette. 4 limbs, humanoid proportions, but the thermal signature fractured. Nodes of intense heat at joints like reactor cores. Ava's finger brushed the trigger. She remembered her mentor's words. Measure. Twice, shoot once. Not hesitating, the rifle barked. The 12.7 millimeters round cleaved through the night with a whistle, punching through the node at the target's right shoulder. The figure stumbled, thermal core sputtering, but it didn't collapse. Instead it pivoted, arms whirring grid-patterned servos. In the chassis glowing. Ava cursed softly. Secondary round, she muttered. The second shot hit the base of its spine. The android collapsed, sparks showering like fireworks in reverse. The rookies exhaled as one. Good hit, ma'am, one whispered, but Ava was already scanning. Clear the area and advance to grid reference Foxtrot 3. Don't leave me in the open too long. They moved silent, swift, shadows melding with the mist. Breakfast in the field mess always tasted metallic, like the oil-stained mugs and the tang of compressed rations. Ava sat alone at a folding table, rifle slung across her back, cane stowed. By her side, the rookies filed in, a mix of awe and anxiety on their faces. Ma'am, about those targets. One began. Ava cut a glance at him. Questions? They hesitated. Then another spoke. What were they? Who sent them? Ava dipped her spoon into the slop. The steam curled in looping wisps. She tapped a finger on the mug's rim, savoring the moment. Does it matter? His mouth opened. He looked at his comrades. No one answered. Focus on your training, she continued. We're not here to chase rumors, we respond to threats. And so far, your biggest threat has 2 scanning cores and 100 kilos of reinforced titanium. Silence. Now eat, she said. We move at 0700. They obeyed. At dawn, the compound's northern range was a sprawl of muddy targets, wrecked vehicles, and scorched earth. Ava walked the line with Santiago, the weapons tech. You saw the footage? He asked. Yeah. She paused at a shattered drone, sensors fried. More drones inbound, same specs, third wave. He whistled low. We've never tested against this. Then we learn. She tapped the blueprint pinned to the board. A quadrilateral formation. They flank us from the ridge and the ravine. We need crossfire. Santiago rubbed his chin. The rookies can't set up fast enough. She met his gaze. They will. There was steel behind her eyes, no longer the injured veteran, but the ghost of every sniper legend whispered about in clandestine bars. Give them the protocol, I'll coach. He nodded slowly. All right. But if this goes sideways, we call it green light extraction at 0800. Understood. She turned toward the rookies already gathering. Sergeants, get them squared away on the new layout. We start in 5. The rookies sprang into action under her commands. And for the first time, they moved with purpose. Ava watched from the ridge as the rookies scrambled into position, their forms silhouetted by the soft lavender hue of dawn. Gear rustled. Scopes clicked into alignment. Mud squelched beneath boot soles as they dug trenches and placed cover shields. She walked the perimeter twice, silent, measuring by the 3rd circuit. The rookies stopped flinching when she neared. Good. Trust wasn't given. It was calibrated. She crouched beside Nolan, the youngest of the bunch, whose hands trembled over the bipod. Ava wordlessly reached over and rotated the rear leg by 2 degrees. Winds shifting from the northwest, compensate. He looked up, blinking rain from his lashes. You get all that just by feel? She stared down the range, her breath even. I used to do this with one eye swollen shut. This is easy. Nolan swallowed hard. Not a dot, then froze as another voice crackled. Across the comes. All squads, be advised, unidentified drones have breached the southern perimeter. Repeat, we have multiple boogies incoming. Ava's head turned toward the horizon. The morning clouds had thickened, tinged a strange bronze. Like the air was holding its breath. She clicked her earpiece. How many, Braith? The commander's voice was tight. 5 no 6 units, angular chassis, thermal cloaks. We only caught them because one clipped a motion sensor. They're fast. She stood. Then they're not here to scout. They're here to test us. She dropped back to base command just long enough to pull the backup hard drives and decrypt what little they had. On these drones. Spec sheets were minimal, experimental origin. Possibly corporate, possibly foreign, bipedal locomotion. Swappable arm modules, neural latency under 0.05 seconds. Designed to simulate advanced threat actors in the field. And then, below that, a single line in red, Project Phantom, leave combat. Evaluation protocol. She shut the terminal. Someone was watching. By the time she returned to the ridge, the rain had started again. Not in drops, but in a fine mist that clung to skin and optics alike. Visibility dropped. Humidity climbed. The perfect storm. Ava adjusted the scope on her SRSA-2, wiping condensation from the lens. Positions, she barked. Each rookie replied. Tension laced behind clipped affirmatives. She activated her leg's internal stabilization system. 3 soft beeps. Then silence. The tripod slid into its buried anchors. Then she waited. The drones came without sound. No engines. No servo squeals. Just the faintest ripple of air displacement. One of the rookies flinched. Ava snapped her fingers short, sharp. Control your panic. Breathe. Nolan's voice broke over the comms. I've got eyes. 12 o'clock, low brush. 2 targets, flanking. Confirm. Confirmed. Pattern looks ... coordinated. Ava, click 2. Open squad-wide channel. They're trying to split our field. Don't let them. Wait for the crossfire zone. The next 30 seconds stretched like rope across a canyon. Then, without warning, a flare of heat popped on her scope. Target acquired. Ava muttered. The first round hit dead center mass. The drone reeled, staggered, and then returned fire. A burst of kinetic flechettes so fast it melted the bark off a nearby tree. Down, she screamed. 2 rookies ducked. One didn't fast enough. Glass shattered from his monocle as he rolled. Yelping, Ava's next shot ripped through the drone's thigh actuator. It fell, left flank. Shouted another voice. A second drone sprinted into the kill box. Ava's team responded in unison. 4 cracks of suppressed fire. The unit exploded into sparks, but more came. At base, Braith was watching the assault unfold. With a pale face, Santiago leaned over the monitors, jaw clenched. She's holding them back, but they're learning. Faster than anything we've seen. Pull her out, she won't go. Then she'll die, Santiago stared. Maybe, but if she doesn't, these kids will come out forged. Back on the ridge, Ava reached into her thigh holster and retrieved a microgrenade. She calibrated it for burst EMP and lobbed it toward the densest concentration. The forest flashed, sparks, smoke. 2 drones seized and collapsed, but one kept moving, and it was heading for Nolan. He froze. Move, Ava bellowed, but it was too late. The drone lunged. Ava fired. A shot missed. She launched forward, pivoting on her leg with enough torque to fracture bone. If it were flesh. The cane swung up. She cracked the drone's optical sensor with a clean UPPER CUT. It reeled. She grabbed Nolan by the collar and threw him to the mud. You freeze again, you die, understood? He nodded, eyes wide. She turned back. The drone was recovering. Ava planted her foot. Leg motors whining. And kicked. Metal crashed against metal. The unit flew back 6 feet and smashed into a pine trunk. Crumpling, she didn't wait. Ava drew her sidearm and pumped. 3 shots through its chest panel. It stilled. When the last drone fell, silence returned. Rain fell again, gentler, almost apologetic. The squad stood around the steaming wreckage. Ava turned to face them. You think training is about getting strong. It's not. It's about recognizing weakness and turning it into instinct. What you did today, that was survival. Nolan raised a shaking hand. Ma'am, I froze. You saved me. Ava holstered her sidearm. I didn't save you. You're still breathing because you got up and kept going. Never forget that. Later, in Braith's office, she stared at the scorched map of the valley. They sent a message, he said. Not a threat in audition. She nodded. And I'm not done. Dancing. Drop 'em if you've ever trained harder because someone doubted you. Hit like if you'd follow her into a storm with no backup. The rain stopped at midnight. It didn't taper or fade. It just stopped, like someone flipped a switch. Ava stood alone outside the armory, face turned toward the clearing sky, listening to the wind whisper through the pine canopy. The silence felt deliberate, calculated. She didn't like it. Behind her, the compound buzzed faintly, generators humming, boots echoing across metal grates. The medics were still patching up Nolan's cracked orbital and the shrapnel embedded in Lee's shoulder, but both had refused evac. Ava had given no speeches. She didn't need to. The rookies had seen the truth in the dark. They'd been hunted, and they'd survived. Now they had a new fear. Not of machines. Of her. At 0400 hours. She walked into the drone command room without knocking. Santiago blinked at her, bleary-eyed. Sleep isn't in your vocabulary, huh? She tossed a thumb drive onto the table. Run this. Pattern matched the kill telemetry from last night's drones. I want any behavior loops or tactical mirroring pulled apart. He inserted it into the console and turned to pour coffee. You think they were mimicking us? Not yet, but they will. The screen flickered. Lines of code poured down like digital rainfall. Heat maps, trajectory patterns, real-time decision trees, then dash, highlighted in red, convergence detected. Tactical learning. Santiago stared. They were adjusting per engagement. Ava leaned closer. They were downloading us. She called. The squad debriefing at first light. No standing formation. No salutes. Just boots in mud and eyes that wouldn't look away. She pulled up the footage on the portable screen. Showed them exactly how the drones moved, how the same unit that flanked Lee was the one that repositioned to avoid Nolan's return fire. You're not fighting steel. You're fighting your own mistakes fed back to you. Every lapse in protocol is a future kill shot. They watched in silence. From this moment on, you are no longer recruits, she said. You are Lev battle personnel. No. Cheers. No reactions. Just solemn nods. She walked down the line, stopping in front of each of them. Say your name. Nolan. Gabe, Lee, Torres, Yasmin. She met each gaze. You say it out loud because you're still here. But until this ends, you wear nothing. No rank, no badge. You are just breath, blood, and trigger memory. She turned to the map. Next incursions coming from the west. Forest lines too quiet. Recon drones blind for the last hour. And command hasn't responded to our last encrypted burst. You think we've been cut off? Torres asked. Iva nodded. I think someone wants to see how long we last. They fortified the western edge. This time, Ava let the rookies decide the layout. She corrected nothing, said nothing. She only observed. Nolan placed 2 choke point suppressors behind a split boulder blind. Yasmin ran fiber optic tripwire across a gully. Torres, despite his shoulder wound, welded together a pressure plate rig linked to a mini claymore line. When they were done, she walked the perimeter once. Acceptable, she said, then vanished into the forest. The plan was simple. She would bait the enemy into the kill box. And she would do it alone. Her cane was slung across her back, now retracted, barely more than a baton. Her leg hummed softly. Beneath cargo pant fabric, its internal gyros whispering updates. She moved like a ghost through the trees. At grid point Kilo 6, she stopped. Looked up. And saw it, hovering 20 feet above the canopy. Smooth, elliptical. Not a drone. Not any human design she'd seen. Iva knelt, raised her scoped monocular, and adjusted the lens. Her blood chilled. The thing was scanning, but not terrain. It was scanning frequency signatures. Looking for command channels. Intercepting protocols. She activated the jammer on her hip, and immediately everything within 500 meters flickered offline. The object jolted, spun once and darted west. Too fast. She raised her rifle. Too far. Base, this is Kincaid. Visual confirmed on foreign aerial surveillance unit. Repeat, unknown craft, elliptical black, signal intercept pattern. Static. No reply. Base, come in. Nothing. She tapped her chest. Switch to analog. Yasmin. Nolan, anyone copy? Crackling. Then read you faintly. Comes jammed. What happened? They're targeting our net. We have less than 15 minutes before they roll in blind. Prepare fallback to zone delta. I'll draw fire. Negative. Nolan barked. We stay together. That's an order. She cut the channel. She ran through thorns, branches, and low brush. Her leg kicked aside logs like matchsticks. Behind her, the forest began to hum. A frequency. Low and pulsing. Synthetic. Ava slid down a ravine and rolled into a crouch just as 3 drones burst into view. Sleek. Upgraded. Faster than before. She smiled. Let's test your reflexes. She fired. Twice. Then ran. She didn't need to kill them. She just needed them to follow. It worked. Like moths to heat, she crossed the tripwire and ducked behind. The gravel blind. The first drone hit the pressure plate and triggered the CLAYMOR ease. Boom. The second jumped, cleared it, and met Lee's burst fire straight to the core. The third pivoted. 2. Smart. Ava launched herself forward, tackled it, and activated the electromagnetic overload on her leg. The drone CONVULSED. Then went still. She rose, breathing hard, face streaked with mud and blood. The rookies emerged behind her. No one said anything. Torres broke the silence. "Ma'am, we're still cut off. Satellite isn't responding. We think the relay's fried." "Then we adapt," she said. She turned to the downed drone, tore off a chest panel, and ripped out a glowing cube. "This is a signal beacon. Help isn't coming. But someone is listening. Drop a if you'd follow her into the woods with no backup. Tap like if you'd take orders from her, not the base." The beacon pulsed in Ava's gloved hand, a dull amber light radiating from its cracked core. Her breath fogged in the chill morning air as she crouched near the scorched drone husk. Around her, the rookies waited, nervous, silent, alert. The mist that had cloaked the tree line for days was burning off, revealing shattered foliage, spent casings, and the deep gouges left behind by the cybernetic monsters they'd just barely managed to stop. She flipped the beacon over. Inside, behind the mesh of alien alloy and heat-sink fibers, was a power source she didn't recognize. Compact, throbbing with heat, yet cool to the touch. Not military issue, not even corporate. Something else, something new. She glanced at Yasmin. "How long to get this wired into the uplink system?" Yasmin blinked. "You want to broadcast from it? This thing could be booby-trapped. It might send our location straight back to whoever sent those things. They already know where we are. I want to hear what they're saying back." It took 2 hours to rig a translation buffer. The base's AI subroutines, even half-blind with relay damage, were just good enough to decode snippets, not words. Not language, but intention. Command chains, instruction layers, hierarchical control pulses. It all pointed to a central node. Mobile control center positioned less than 40 kilometers away, and moving closer. Ava leaned over the makeshift console. Signals pulsed through the stolen transmitter. The synthetic leg beneath her braced against the dirt floor, whirring with micro-adjustments. "There's a commander in play," she said. "Something or someone close enough to pull direct control. They've shifted from observation to engagement. Why now?" Nolan asked. "Why escalate?" Ava stared at the glowing beacon. "Because they think we're weak. Because they think we'll break." She looked at her team. "They haven't seen what we're like when we don't." Braith reappeared on shortwave at 1400 hours. His face was streaked with blood and ash, but his voice held firm. "Kincaid, I've got wounded and no evac route. We got hit this morning by something that wasn't a drone. It was piloted. Survivors? Half my command team. The rest are Mia. I've pulled everyone into the bunker grid. But comms are failing. Across the board. We're deaf beyond 10 clicks." Ava's jaw tightened. "Do you have eyes on the node I flagged?" "Negative. But something's broadcasting low-frequency pulses every 6 minutes. Can't triangulate. It's moving like a predator." She exhaled. "Then we hunt it." The rookies didn't flinch when she said it. They followed as she laid out the plan, a 3-pronged push. She and Nolan would flank from the north ravine. Yasmin and Gabe would take the southern ridge. Lee and Torres would set traps along the fallback corridor. "What about extraction?" Gabe asked. "We don't count on rescue. If we take out the node, everything it controls should lose sync. We'll be blind, but so will they. And if we're wrong," she looked at him, "then we make sure we're the last ones standing." They moved at dusk. The forest was a graveyard of signals, every step crackling against magnetic residue. Their armor glimmered faintly with dust from EMP flares. Ava led Nolan through the low gulch, rifle slung across her back, left hand tapping the cane's collapsible core. Nolan tried to speak twice. Both times she shut him down with a look, but finally, as they reached the northern shelf and spotted the signal tower, a twisted antenna wrapped in black conduit and sprouting from a shattered convoy hull, he whispered, "Do you think these machines were made by us, by humans?" She didn't answer right away. "No," she said finally. "I think we let someone else make them." Then tried to hide it. The node pulsed. Once, then again. A low thrumming filled the air. A sound like breath but wrong. Mechanical breath. Something big moved through the trees below. "Visual," Nolan whispered. "Contact at 80 meters. Looks humanoid, but bulkier. Armor plating." Ava raised her scope. The thing below moved like it. Weighed nothing. 7 feet tall. 2 arm cannons folded tight against its chest. A half mask over its jaw. Glowing blue veins pulsing across its neck. Not a drone. Not a pilot. A hybrid dot. She sucked in air. "Fall back. Now." But it saw them. The thing turned its head and launched. Ava fired twice. Nolan followed. Both hits glanced off. The hybrid crashed into the ravine wall and kept running, faster now. They scrambled. "Code red." Ava barked into the cum. "Node has guardians, tactical hybrids. Heavily shielded. Assume command-level intelligence." Yasmin acknowledged. "South flank falling back. Target diverted. Gabe, Lee's down." "I repeat, Lee's hit. Sensors going dark." Ava cursed. She grabbed Nolan's collar and hauled him behind a boulder as the hybrid vaulted the ridge and fired. The blast wasn't kinetic. It was sonic, an implosion of pressure. Ava's ears rang. Her vision doubled, but her leg held. She dropped the cane. Switched to underbarrel grenades. Fired. The hybrid caught the blast to the chest, staggered. Nolan opened fire with everything he had. Ava flanked. Then dash. Finally, the hybrid dropped to one knee. Ava moved fast. Jammed a field blade into the exposed seam at the base of its skull. The thing shuddered. Then stilled. "Node secure," she breathed. "Moving to extraction point Zulu." Static. Then. "Yasmin, copy. Lee's stable. Gabe's carrying him. We'll converge at fallback." Ava looked at Nolan. His hands were shaking. But he was alive. She handed him the beacon. "You carry that. You earned it. Drop a, if you'd hold the line even. When the sky falls. Hit like if you'd charge into the dark with her." The beacon weighed less than a rifle mag, but Nolan held it like it might explode. Ava led the way, her synthetic leg clicking softly beneath her with each step. Rain hadn't returned, but the air was thick, humid like an unspoken threat. The sun filtered through blackened trees and copper streaks, casting strange shadows over the mud-churned forest floor. Every breath they took was a gamble. Every sound a possible lure. The node had been neutralized. But they were still deep in enemy territory, cut off. And now, thanks to that brief burst of combat with the hybrid, their position was compromised again. They had minutes. Maybe less. Fallback Point Zulu was carved out of the southern basin, a collapsed mining outpost from a forgotten operation. It offered natural barriers and a collapsed shaft that could double as a tunnel if they had to move underground. Ava had mapped it years ago, back when this region was still just a footnote in her recon log. Now it might be their only chance at regrouping. By the time Ava and Nolan crested the ridge, Yasmin and Gabe had already set perimeter tripwires. Torres was setting up an emergency antenna, shielding it under a tarp rigged between two splintered beams. Lee sat in the corner, propped against a mossy stone, face pale but lucid. His left leg was wrapped in compression bandage and splinted. Gabe gave a small nod as Ava approached. "He'll live." Took shrapnel near the femoral artery. Close call. Ava crouched beside Lee, looked him in the eye. "Pain scale?" He smiled weakly. About a 9, but I can still pull a trigger. She nodded. That's all I need. Then she turned to the others. Here's what we know. The node was broadcast in short burst command pulses. When we disrupted it, the hybrids lost synchronization. I don't think they're autonomous. I think they're linked in real time. Hive mind? Torres asked. Ava shook her head. Not quite. More like ... distributed command relay. If we can locate the source master, we can break the whole system. How do we find it? Yasmin asked. Ava looked at the beacon. We trace the residual. Every command packet leaves a signature, even if it's encrypted. We let it ping once. Just once, then we follow the trail. Nolan swallowed. And if it sends our position instead? Ava met his gaze. Then we fight on our terms. They set up the signal trace at midnight. Torres monitored the frequency spike. Yasmin recalibrated the antenna orientation. Ava stood atop the collapsed structure, scanning the tree line through a borrowed nightscope. The moon was high, the wind dead. Then it came. One soft pulse dot, then another dot. Torres watched the screen. Trace confirmed. Origin point approximately 72 kilometers southwest. Coordinates lead into the basin range. No roads. No known infrastructure. They built something out there, Ava muttered. Off-grid, hidden in plain sight. She turned to the squad. We leave at dawn. Pack light. Leave anything you can't sprint with. The journey took 10 hours on foot, cutting through unstable terrain, rising shale cliffs, and burned-out valleys. They encountered no patrols, no drones, no scouts. Quiet, Gabe whispered at first. This is wrong, Ava agreed. But she didn't say it. Instead, she pushed them harder. At 1700 hours, they found it. A dome, hidden beneath a collapsed waterfall. Masked with optical camouflage and powered by geothermal turbines. It pulsed faintly with electric light, a shimmering blue membrane that distorted their reflections. Inside the dome, a facility unlike anything Ava had seen before. Steel corridors curved organically. No visible doors. Panels blinked with alien UI. This isn't just tactical, Yasmin whispered. It's experimental. They stepped in, and the membrane closed behind them. The air shifted. Pressure systems inside the dome adapted instantly, drying their clothes, filtering sweat from skin. Ava reached for her rifle. Nothing happened. Her hand passed through the sling. The weapon was gone. They disarmed us, Gabe hissed. No, Ava whispered. They disassembled our gear. Look at your watch. Yasmin glanced. The screen was blank, no internal parts. Just an empty frame. Torres growled. They're watching. Good, Ava said. Let them. They pressed forward, through halls that rearranged shape, through passageways that pulsed with thought, until they reached a central chamber, a single chair, empty, and a mirrored wall that began to ripple. That it formed a face, not a human face, but close, synthetic, hollow-eyed, with Ava's own features projected onto it. Nolan staggered. What the hell? The voice that came was hers. Ava Kincaid. Confirmed. Genetic match. Mission profile. Resilience evaluation. Threshold exceeded. She stepped forward. What are you? The mirror flickered. I am what was left behind when your world outsourced evolution. You were the control group. Control for what? To prove that organic instinct can adapt faster than artificial escalation. Yasmin whispered. They built this whole war to test us? Ava narrowed her eyes. What happens now? The face smiled. Now you decide. Terminate this installation or ascend. Torres raised an empty hand. What the hell does ascend mean? Ava didn't answer. She walked to the console, and it recognized her leg. A port opened. She stepped forward. Her cane, rebuilt by the dome, was handed back to her from a robotic limb. Ava gripped it and raised it, then smashed the core. The dome shuddered. Sparks rained from the walls. Get out. She yelled. They ran outside as the dome collapsed into the ravine. A new signal burst upward, brighter than anything yet. Brafe's voice crackled in her earpiece. Kincaid, we've got visuals. What the hell did you just do? She looked down at her leg. It was glowing. So was the cane, and deep in the crater below, a new shape was rising. Not a drone, not a hybrid. Something else, and it knew her name. Drop. If you'd follow Ava even when the ground gives way. Tap like if you trust her to take the final shot. The crater still glowed in eerie cobalt blue as the team scrambled to the ridge. Ava's synthetic leg hissed with heat, its internal circuits flickering beneath the alloyed skin. She didn't slow, didn't look back. Not even when the collapsed dome below began to shudder, rising from within, lifting the dust and debris in a spiraling vortex of charged air. Behind her, Nolan stumbled. Yasmin caught him. Torres was bleeding again. Lee winced with every jolt to his makeshift crutch. Gabe was on perimeter scan, eyes wide, his voice tight. It's not over. That thing's still coming. Ava reached the summit and turned. She saw it. Not a drone, not a hybrid. Something else entirely. A humanoid form climbed from the fractured husk of the installation, sleek and tall, its frame humming with quantum energy. Not built for war, built for response, built for final phase deployment. It looked like a person, but no face. Just a black reflective plate across its head, pulsing with threads of red light like a heartbeat. The cane Ava had used remade inside. The dome began to vibrate. And so did her leg. Ava didn't speak. She just stepped forward. The others followed. They didn't understand. Not fully, but they trusted her. And Ava Kincaid wasn't ready to die. Not today. Wraith's voice cut through the static on the emergency channel. We see you, Kincaid. We're patched into a recon satellite. The heat signature. Down there. That's off the charts. I know, she said quietly. You need to fall back. We've got a strike package inbound. 12 minutes. Ava's eyes never left the figure below. Negative. That strike will trigger full atmospheric chain collapse if that thing destabilizes. It's not just heat, it's quantum lattice. A pause. Then Braith again, more cautious. How the hell do you know that? Ava didn't answer, because part of her didn't know how she knew. She just did. The cane in her hand wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was receiving something, transmitting, or both. The cybernetic leg, upgraded beyond spec by the dome systems, hummed with data. She could feel the terrain through the footpad, feel electromagnetic shifts in the soil. She was part of it now, whether she wanted to be or not. The figure at the bottom of the ridge began to move. Not running, not charging, just walking toward them. Ava held up a hand. Do not fire. Ma'am. Torres whispered. What the hell are we supposed to do then? Wait to die. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. Yasmin hissed. We blew up its dome. No, Ava said. We woke it up. The figure stopped 20 meters away. Then spoke. Its voice came not from a mouth, but from the cane. Ava Kincaid. Clearance validated. Neural imprint matched. Step forward. She didn't hesitate. She walked down the incline alone, leg crunching through loose shale. The squad watched, weapons raised but fingers trembling. When she stopped 3 meters from the figure, it lowered its head. Prototype phase concluded. Awaiting command directive. Ava blinked. What? Command. Primary directive overwritten by legacy code fragment. Secondary directive now active. User-authored mission logic. She shook her head. I didn't write anything. You did. When you refused extraction. When you rebuilt the cane. When you chose impact over compliance. She stared. That's not logic. That's instinct. Correct. The template has evolved. Behind her, Nolan whispered. Is it taking orders from her? Torres said. Or is she becoming it? Ava looked at the figure. You're not here to destroy. No, I am the failsafe, but now ... I am waiting. She took a breath. Then wait for this. No more tests. No more squads turned into data points. Shut it all down. The figure paused. Then, confirmed. Final sequence unlocked. From its chest, a pulse of light surged outward, wave-like, rolling across the valley, striking trees, rocks, the ruins of the dome, everything, and turning all tech dormant. The team's comms cut out. Their weapons went cold. Even Ava's leg dimmed. What did you do? Gabe asked. Ava turned. I shut the network down. Permanently? She didn't answer, because the cane in her hand was still glowing. Hours later, as a vac finally arrived and Braith's VTOL swept overhead, the squad stood in silence. By the edge of the destroyed dome. The fail-safe figure had vanished, dissolved into particles, or retreated underground. No one was sure, but the valley was silent. Peaceful. For now. Braith landed and jogged over. We've got extraction cleared. Everyone gets a debrief. Medical first, then priority psych evals. He looked at Ava. And you? She handed him the cane. That doesn't belong to me anymore. He stared. What are you going to do? She turned her face toward the hills. Watch, wait, see if they kept their word. But that night, in her bunk, before sleep, before painkillers, before debrief, Ava opened her kit. Inside, wrapped in a strip of synthetic cloth, was the beacon. Still warm, still blinking, and deep inside. It ... a message ... in her own voice. If you're hearing this, it means they listened. But listening isn't the same as changing. Stay sharp, Ava. This isn't the end. It's the test after the test. Drop it, if you'd follow Ava even into the silence. Hit like if you believe the strongest weapon is still the mind. The beacon blinked every 7 seconds. Ava timed it, counted it, studied the rhythm like a code buried in a lullaby. Lying on her cot in the makeshift infirmary tent, the glow painted soft amber shapes across the canvas walls. Around her, silence. Stretched too clean, too curated. Even after the extraction, the calm felt artificial, as if the ground itself were holding its breath. Across the room, Lee slept with one arm slung over his bandaged ribs. Yasmin and Torres hadn't returned from the psych evaluations. Gabe was still on the comms tower, monitoring nothing. And Nolan hadn't spoken a word since the fail-safe vanished. Ava sat up. She didn't need sleep. She needed answers. The briefing tent was dark, save for the emergency glow panels. She slipped past the guards, moving like shadow, her leg now dimmed, but still responsive. Each step was precise, each footfall intentional. Inside, Braith's desk was covered in maps, thermal readouts, and a data slate blinking with urgent flags. She bypassed the lock. The moment the terminal flickered to life, she pulled the memory plug from her vest and inserted it into the console. The screen pulsed. Layers of encrypted reports unraveled. Half were redacted, but the file she wanted, the one labeled Arrowhead Protocol, Tier Zulu Asset Report, opened, and her name was at the top. Kincaid, Ava, Subject Class, Legacy Integrated Operator Classification, Hybrid Adapted Status, Active, Unstable, Observe, but do not engage. She blinked. Then read the line beneath it. If Subject activates Phase 4, terminate. Braith stood behind her. She didn't hear him enter. Didn't need to. How long? She asked, not turning. Since after the Myanmar operation, he said. His voice was low, flat. When your league interfaced with that intel pod and decrypted black tier files faster than a quantum splice AI, command flagged you. Ava finally turned. You knew I wasn't fully human anymore. And you still sent me back in. Because you're the only one who's ever survived them twice. You're the variable. I'm the bait. He didn't answer. She stepped forward. Was the dome a test? Or was I the test? Both. She could have broken his nose, could have taken out the guards, vanished into the night with the beacon and no trace. But she didn't. Instead, she said, "Then you tell command this. If I'm unstable, it's because you broke the rules. If I'm dangerous, it's because you made me survive what no one else could." She tossed the memory plug onto the desk. "But I'm not your experiment, not anymore." Then she walked out. Dawn bled across the compound. Low clouds rolled over the range, turning the world pale and cold. Ava met the squad by the gear depot. Already packed and waiting. Nolan looked up. His voice was quiet. "You knew they tagged you." She nodded. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." She looked at each of them. Lee, Yasmin, Torres, Gabe. "Then we don't go back to the cities. We don't go back to command. We finish this our way." "What's our way?" Yasmin asked. Ava turned. "We find the source. The real one. The thing they don't want us to know exists." They moved fast. West through the ranges, into old fire trails and satellite blackout zones. The map Ava carried wasn't printed. It was remembered, pulled from fragmentary flashes she'd seen in the dome, like puzzle pieces placed out of order. Coordinates, names, snippets of a deeper program called Hades, hidden artificial deployment for emergent supremacy. A single phrase echoed in the file. Only legacy-linked minds can perceive the full pathway. She was the pathway. 3 days later, they reached the plateau. It was a place no maps marked, no flights passed over. The sky here felt heavier. The trees too still. And in the center an old silo. Broken, collapsed inward. Vines strangling the edges, but the ground pulsed with energy below. They camped just outside the blast radius. Ava stared at the beacon. Still blinking. Then, finally it changed. Not a pulse. A projection. From within the casing. A figure formed. Static wrapped. Shifting. Her but older. Scarred. More mechanical. Ava watched. "Hello, Kincaid," the echo said. "If you're seeing this, then you passed, or you cheated. Doesn't matter. I'm what comes next. This facility below you isn't just a nest. It's a seed for what's coming." They tried to erase it, bury it, but the system never forgot. And now it's waking up. The ground shook. Below, in the heart of the silo, something clicked into life. Drop a "if you've ever felt used then." Rose anyway. Tap like if you trust Ava to finish what they started. To be continued. The silo door groaned. Not metal against metal, but like pressure decompressing. Like the earth exhaling after holding its breath for decades. Ava stood at the edge of the blast ring, eyes fixed on the cracked concrete circle at the forest's heart. The beacon, still glowing faintly in her palm, projected a lattice of blue light down into the fissures, each being landed precisely. The silo responded. With a hiss. A central ring folded inward, revealing a stairwell so ancient it looked carved from obsidian. Vines had grown into the grooves, then stopped, burned back by something residual. Torres stepped beside her. "This place feels wrong." Ava didn't move. "It's not wrong. It's waiting." Gabe unslung his rifle, even though it was still effectively dead tech. "For us?" "For me," Ava said. They descended in silence. Each step down was a year erased. Each layer closer to a secret that should never have been buried. The walls pulsed occasionally with residual current. Not enough to light the space, but enough to suggest something. Massive had once lived here, machines, systems, minds. 2 levels down. They reached a blast door. The cane Ava carried quiet since the dome collapsed. Vibrate. Then twisted. Base unfolded into a hex key. She inserted it into a socket none of them had noticed before. The door groaned and split. Open. Beyond it, a hangar, vast, cavernous, silent. And inside it, rows of shells. Not drones, not mechs, Humanoid figures. Dozens of them. All half complete. All made in her image. Yasmin gasped. Is this... Were they trying to clone you? Ava stepped forward. Her voice was steady. Not clone. Emulate. They weren't just building soldiers. They were building decisions, instinct. They were trying to manufacture legacy. She approached one of the figures. It looked like her. Same jawline. Same frame. But empty behind the eyes. A tag on its chest read, Genome Cycle. 41A. Adaptive Unite. Torres ran his fingers over a nearby console. These have been dormant for years, at least a decade. Ava whispered, then why are they charging now? Because they were. All at once, the husks lit up subtle glows beneath their synthetic skin. Charging coils embedded in the walls began to hum. Overhead, the lights surged. We need to get out of here, Nolan said. No, Ava said. We need to wake them up. The team backed away. She stood her ground. Because the projection from the beacon, the future Ava had told her, this was the moment. Not when you ran. Not when you fired, but when you chose. She lifted the cane. Pointed it toward the nearest shell. Signal pulse. One figure stepped off its mount. Then another. Then another. The first one spoke. Its voice was hers, calmer, colder. Directive input required. You're not under directive, Ava replied. You're free. The figure blinked. Then repeated. Directive input required. The rest echoed it, dozens of voices. Directive input required. Ava exhaled, raised the cane again. Then input this. No more obedience, no more control. If you are me, if you carry any part of my code, then your mission is choice. Your mission is will. The lights flickered, then stopped. Outside, the forest shuddered. Braith's voice barked over the emergency band. Kincaid, we're picking up seismic anomalies. Commands en route. You need to evacuate. Ava pressed her earpiece. Negative. I'm not abandoning this. You don't understand. That site wasn't meant to be opened. You're waking up sovereign protocols. These units don't answer to anyone, not even command. That's the point, she said. Then she crushed the earpiece under her boot. Back in the silo, the floor trembled. Then rose, a platform ascended. In its center, a control sphere, floating, rotating. The shell units parted as Ava approached. Her own squad stayed back, silent. She placed her hand on the sphere. The world went white. She stood in memory. A testing room. Her old sniper instructor. Her father. Her mother. All frozen. Digital ghosts. A voice echoed. To evolve is not to forget who you were. It is to become the one who remembers why. Then another voice. Hers. Legacy isn't about obedience. It's about defiance. Then silence. And then the world returned. The shell units were awake. And watching her. The one nearest stepped forward. Awaiting. Vector. Ava lowered her hand. Then here it is. We take this fight back to them. But not as weapons. Not as tools. As warnings. Torres stepped forward. You're building an army. No, Ava said. I'm building memory. Outside, the trees split. VTOLs roared overhead. Spotlights lit the canopy. Command had arrived, and they weren't asking. Drop a if you believe some legacies don't need permission. Hit like if you'd stand with Ava when the sky turns against her. The sky above the plateau churned with rotowash. Floodlights painted artificial noon across the trees. Ava stood at the mouth of the silo, surrounded by rows of awakened shell units, each one watching the world with blank, receptive faces that carried echoes of hers. The cane in her hand pulsed with faint light, sensed now to systems she didn't fully understand. But she didn't need to understand them. She needed to lead them. A squad of armored commandos rappelled from the nearest VTOL, dropping into a defensive wedge at the tree line. Their rifles gleamed in the light, tracking her center mass. No orders shouted. No challenge given. That was the message. They weren't here to talk. Ava turned to her squad. Fall back into the tree line. Keep low. Torres didn't move. You expect us to run? I expect you to live. Nolan stepped forward. We're not leaving you. She gave him a look. One he'd only seen once back in the ravine, just before she tackled a hybrid drone without hesitation. You will if you trust me. The ground beneath the silo shimmered. Each awakened shell unit took a step forward, not in unison, but like organisms adapting to a rhythm only they could feel. Their eyes glowed faint blue. Their fingers flexed. The VTO overhead barked a warning siren. Then a voice boomed from loudspeakers. Stand down, Ava Kincaid. You are classified as a rogue variable by order of Central Command. You are to be detained for decommissioning. Compliance will preserve your team. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, the cane in her hand. Reshaped mid-stride, unfolded into a gauntlet across her forearm, embedding into the port just below her elbow. The synthetic leg activated its anchor sequence. She stopped on solid ground, immovable. You want a directive? She shouted, here it is. You don't get to erase what you can't control. You don't get to burn the files just because the code learned how to fight back. The speakers didn't reply. A drone fired a warning shot that it struck 2 meters in front of her. Dirt sprayed. Ava raised her left arm. The gauntlet glowed. And then she did what no one expected. She knelt. Not in surrender, but in connection. The gauntlet pulsed, sending a signal to the shell units. One by one, they mirrored her. A wave of kneeling figures, each one silently transmitting a command protocol too complex for human interference. Above them, the VTOL's targeting systems began to fail. Power drains. AI errors. Screens went black. Inside the command bird, Braith stared at the data flooding across his console. What the hell is she doing? The tech beside him whispered. She's reprogramming them. All of them. Including us. Pull back, Braith barked. We can't engage. We're already compromised. But they couldn't, because something was jamming. Their retreat vector. And it wasn't the shell units. It was Ava herself. The sky dimmed. Power failed. The artificial noon went dark. Only the faint glow of Ava's embedded cane remained. She stood again. Her voice rang across the clearing. You built this war to control outcomes. You designed us to be compliant variables. But evolution doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait. It surges. Her eyes flared as the leg's anchor disengaged. We're not variables anymore. We're the constant. Then the shell units moved, not to attack, not to destroy, but to surround the commandos, calmly, without violence. Each one reached for the nearest rifle and laid it down. A gesture. An echo. A message. We don't want your war. We're not your soldiers. We choose. It broke something in the air. One by one, the commandos lowered their weapons. Braith watched from above, jaw clenched, but he didn't give the kill order, because in that moment, even he understood. He wasn't in control anymore. Later, when the helicopters left and the tree line was quiet again, Nolan approached Ava. They'll come back, I know. With lawyers. With black suits. With new names and plausible deniability. Ava looked at the shells dispersing into the woods like nomads. Her reflection danced across the curved edge of her gauntlet. Then we'll be waiting. Torres asked the question none of them dared say. Aloud, are you still human? Ava turned, smiled but not fully. Depends on the day. Gabe set the new beacon into a tree hollow. It pulsed quietly. Lee handed Yasmin a folded tarp to cover it. Nolan kept watching Ava. She sat by the old campfire. Ring, staring into ashes. Then she looked up. New directive. Yeah, we build, not to fight, to protect. Ourselves, others, even them if they ever stop fearing what they can't control. He nodded slowly. And if they don't? Ava closed her eyes. Then we show them what control really looks like. Drop a if you believe peace means owning your scars. Tap like if Ava's not just surviving anymore, she's leading. The forest was theirs now. At first light, the shell units moved silently, dispersing through the hills like sentinels returning to ancestral ground. Some climbed trees and sat like watchful gargoyles. Others carved shallow symbols into stone. With their fingers marks Ava instinctively recognized, though she couldn't name them. They weren't language. They were warnings, boundaries, promises, peace, enforced by memory. Her memory. Ava sat at the edge of the plateau, legs crossed, fingers dismantling an old pulse rifle she no longer needed. Beside her, the cane lay inert. Since the confrontation with command, it hadn't glowed, hadn't moved. It was just metal now. A relic. She wasn't sure if that comforted or scared her. Gabe approached, slung low to the earth as if afraid to disturb something sacred, the perimeters holding. Nothing's moved for 3 clicks in any direction. No drones, no scouts. Just quiet. Ava didn't look up. The kind of quiet that makes you flinch. Yeah. She clicked the chamber free and began cleaning it with slow, methodical strokes. They'll regroup, not with guns. With questions, contracts, bargains. And if we say no? She inserted the barrel rod with a whisper of pressure. Then we're more dangerous than we were before. Nolan had taken to sleeping with his boots on. Yasmin no longer flinched when the shells passed nearby. Torres had stopped asking what came next. Because they knew the world didn't want them back. Not as they were. So they would remake it. One outpost, one memory, one boundary at a time. The first caravan arrived at dusk 3 days later. Not military. Civilians. Ragged. Tired, limping through the brush with hands raised high. A woman at the front carried a child wrapped in foil. Behind her, a man with one arm and a makeshift oxygen tank strapped to his back. They'd come from a city Ava didn't know one. Raised by something called Clean Sweep Protocol 7, Nolan met them with open hands. Gabe called Ava. She walked to the clearing and stopped 10 paces away. The woman said only, "We heard there was a place where they don't follow the old orders, where someone made them stop." Ava said nothing for a long time, then stepped aside. "You'll find no orders here, just the work." They called it Haven later. Yasmin painted the word onto the hull of an old carrier that had been gutted and flipped into shelter. The paint came from melted drone plating, mixed with algae, and Hope. Lee taught a girl how to clean a rifle. Torres built solar chargers from scavenged tech. Ava walked the ridges every morning, leg whirring faintly, scanning the horizon. Watching. Always watching. Then the whisper came, a signal. One pulse. Not from the beacon. From space. High orbit. Ava woke in the middle of the night. Breath shallow. The cane glowed again, and a symbol appeared on its shaft, one she'd seen in the dome. She called. The team to the comes array just before dawn. "We're not done." Nolan looked exhausted. "We haven't even finished this one." She tapped the cane against the old concrete. "They're not from here. The ones who built the tech? The ones who built the idea," Yasmin swore under her breath. "You're saying there's a higher protocol than command?" Ava nodded. "And we just triggered it." The satellite images came 3 days later. A station. Not registered. Not listed in any network. Drifting just beyond. Geosynchronous orbit. Small. Dark until it pulsed. And then it began moving toward Earth. Sent a message. Encrypted. Burned after one open. You were right. This thing doesn't belong to us. And they're coming back. Who's they? Ava typed. The response came instantly. The ones who left you the leg. The plateau was quiet that night. Too quiet. Ava sat with the squad around the campfire. The shells stood watch in a wide arc, scanning the skies now as much as the trees. "I thought we won," Gab said. "I thought we ended it." Ava looked at the stars. We ended the test. Now comes the grade. Torres sipped water from a dented flask. What if they want you back? She didn't hesitate. They can ask. And if they try to take you? She stared at the cane, glowing again like it had never stopped. Then they better be ready to meet the one who remembers why. Drop a if you're ready for whatever's next. Tap like if Ava's fight has become your anthem. The satellite entered the mesosphere 3 days later. It didn't announce itself, didn't send warnings. No call signs, no diplomatic IDs, just a gradual descent, unmarked, silent, and cold. It tumbled in slow spirals over dead oceans, burned mountain ridges, and cities that still bore the scars of the last wave. Ava Kincaid watched its orbit from the cracked uplink dish Gabe had retooled. Her synthetic leg rested against a stone, exposed to the early sun. The cane pulsed steadily against her palm. Its rhythm was almost anxious. Out below her, Haven stirred. Small fires crackled. Children emerged to fetch water. Shell units lined. The tree-line-like sculptures come to life. She'd bought them time. But the clock had restarted. Nolan brought the hard copy at noon. A printer's blur of grainy satellite telemetry. Still no ID, he said, but it's slowing. Calculated re-entry, not a crash, not random. Ava unfolded the sheet, ran her fingers over the marked trajectory. They're steering it. Atmospheric skim to bleed velocity, then guided drop. Where? She circled the coordinates. Just north of Haven. U.S. Yasmin and Lee reinforced the perimeter. Gabe recalibrated the EMP grid. Torres set fallback flares. Ava didn't issue formal orders. She told stories of what the dome had shown her, of the hybrid, of the line in the redacted files that had haunted her for months. Phase 5, Celestial Recall Protocol. She hadn't known what it meant. Now she did. This wasn't escalation. It was a message, and she was the only one left to answer it. The station landed at 213. No impact crater. It folded into place like gravity. Itself had shifted to accommodate its arrival. It stood just above the horizon, a gleaming cylinder embedded in fractured earth. Silent and inert, Ava watched from the ridge, eyes sharp. Her leg had begun to twitch with intermittent pulses. Not pain, not malfunction. Anticipation. The cane lit up fully for the first time since the dome collapse. Its surface shimmered with glyphs recognizable only to Ava, and even then, only in fragments. Some part of her knew what they meant. A door, a test. An invitation. She didn't wait for dawn. The exterior of the station hummed with quiet tension. Not heat, not light, just presence. Like being watched by a sleeping predator. Ava approached alone. The squad remained behind per her orders. They'd follow if it went bad. But this was her threshold. The cane extended into its original form. As she stepped into the radius, the metal of the door retracted without sound. Inside, light, and a voice, her own. Ava Kincaid, you have reached terminal step. The walls lit with data spirals. Legacy imprint detected. You are the last functioning unit with phase access. She stepped forward, past floating consoles and kinetic light sculptures. This is your inheritance, choice or return. Remain as protector or ascend to architect. She stopped. What does ascend mean? The voice didn't change. Transfer consciousness. Assume oversight of network. Integrate with orbital failsafe grid. No return. Her heart thudded. Become the machine? No. Become the reason the machine was built. She closed her eyes. And saw faces. Nolan, Yasmin, Gabe, the shells. The children. Haven. Her father. The target she'd hit blindfolded at 13. The ridge she'd bled on. The leg they took and the weapon it became. 100 moments folded into one. She opened her eyes. Then show me the price. They did. Everything. Files that no one was supposed to see. Project timelines. The collapse of 20 colonies. The decision to sacrifice frontier squads as data harvesters. The dome wasn't an accident, it was a lab. In Ava, a variant. Not just chosen. Constructed. Her leg had been more than recovery. It was the key. And the cane? The transmitter. She staggered back. I was never free. The voice shifted. No one is until they choose to be. Back at Haven, the sky darkened. The station began to pulse. Torres ready to rifle. Nolan stared at the horizon. She's still in there. Yasmin whispered, or she's becoming something else. Inside, Ava walked into the core chamber. A single chair. A console. A mirrored floor. She stepped forward. The cane dissolved in her hand. Her leg locked, and the platform rose. Lights wrapped around her. Projections flickered. Her vitals sensed. Her memories aligned. The voice returned. Final command, do you assume? Control? She stood tall. No, I share it. Silence. Then, directive accepted. And the chamber opened. Back outside, the station shifted. Panels opened. Beacons launched into orbit. But there was no explosion. No weapon. Just light. A signal beamed into the stars. Not a threat. A declaration. We remembered. And beside it, a second. Signal. We're not yours anymore. Ava stepped from the door at dawn. Her leg, now silent. The cane gone. But her eyes? They held galaxies. Nolan ran to her. Are you? She nodded. I'm here, all of me, and more. What did you do? She looked to the sky, told the stars we're awake now. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Drop us if you believe the only upgrade worth taking is choice. Hit like if Ava's story lives in your memory now. The final signal echoed across low orbit for 17 minutes and 32 seconds. Then it fell silent. Across military satellites, corporate listening posts, and forgotten bunkers sealed beneath oceans, the message appeared simultaneously. We remember. We do not comply. In the first 4 seconds of that broadcast, 13 remote kill switches engaged. None succeeded, because the system they were trying to shut down had already passed beyond their reach. Haven didn't celebrate. Not at first. The quiet was too thick, the tension too deep. But as the skies remained still, as the strange station dimmed into dormancy, and as Ava Kincaid walked back into the center of Camp Hole, breathing, scarred and different something shifted. Children approached her first. Then Lee. Then Torres. And Yasmin and Nolan. They didn't ask what she had become. They just listened. To her voice. To her breath. To the rhythm of someone who had walked into the machine and come out more human than before. They buried the cane beneath the old fire ring. Ava insisted. It did its job, she said, but it doesn't get to define the next chapter. The synthetic leg stayed, not because she needed it to fight, but because it reminded her of how far she'd walked. And how much farther there was to go. The first emissary arrived 2 weeks later, not military, not corporate, a child, 12 years old. Carried a shard of drone casing around her neck and eyes that had seen too much. She didn't ask for permission to stay. She simply sat at the edge of Haven's circle and watched Ava sharpen a blade. Eventually she said, I heard you broke the sky. Ava looked up. I asked it a question. What did it say? Ava paused. That no one has the right to keep us quiet. The girl nodded. And stayed. More came after. Drifters, families, former soldiers. A rogue AI in a metal case the size of a crate. Once, even a defector from Central Command, still wearing the uniform, but with a burned-out insignia and a sealed envelope addressed to Ava by name. She opened it. It said only we didn't know. Now we do, thank you. Inside was a memory crystal, containing every redacted file from Project Arrowhead. And a final phrase. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Torres stood beside her as she watched the sky that night. Do you think they'll come again? The ones who built all this? The first ones. Ava watched a single star flicker. Maybe, but next time we won't be test subjects. Yasmin asked, what will we be? Ava smiled. Warning. The shell units never returned to sleep. Some became sentries. Some became teachers. One learned how to carve poetry into scrap metal and left phrases along the ridge for wind to read. One simply stood beside the old antenna and stared into the sky, waiting. Not for war, for understanding. Ava planted something beneath the ridge. An archive. Not of weapons. Of names. All those who had walked through the fire and emerged remade. Her team, her enemies, even Braith. Because stories deserved memory. And memory was resistance. The last time the cane flickered to life, Ava was sitting alone beneath a tree. The message that came through was brief. 4 words. You wrote this ending. Then silence. And peace. Not the peace of ignorance, but the peace earned by those who fought to remain human, no matter what was taken. No matter what was installed in its place. In time, they stopped calling her Captain. And started calling her Mother. Not as family, but as the one who had seen the fire and didn't run. The one who asked the machine why and lived to hear it answer. The one who taught the next generation to choose. Even when every protocol said comply. Even when the sky blinked and the cane glowed and the wind whispered her name through the wires. Ava Kincaid. Not a weapon. Not a relic, but a legacy forged by refusal and lit by memory.